If you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree one night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College, a different way of thinking.
Good evening, and welcome to the Albright Scholar for September 2017. My name is John Pankratz. I teach history at Albright, and each month it's my privilege to welcome BCTV viewers and residents of Greater Reading to take a look inside our learning community up here on North 13th Street, to look at the work being done by teachers and students, and to think about its impact on all of us. Well, the school year is well begun. Lots of things are happening in the arts, in the sciences, in the social sciences as well, and the freshman class is getting acculturated to the campus life. Over the summer, you'll recall, in both June and July, I brought faculty colleagues and students onto the show to talk about summer ACRE research. Well, we're going to catch up with a project that was part of that ACRE program, the Albright Creative Research Experience, and find out a little bit of the results of some psychological experimentation. My guest is Renee Hunsberger. Renee, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Pankratz.
And Renee, you're a senior psychobiology major.
That's correct.
Great, great. What made you want to spend your whole summer in the lab and in serious study rather than going out and having fun someplace?
I guess just sitting through a bunch of psychology classes here at Albright.
Okay.
And you just sit in class too many times and there's just so many questions that kind of start racing through your mind. Concepts come up in class and you just kind of end up wondering more about them. Mm-hmm. And I remember I talked to Dr. Fagenson a lot and I was asking him questions regarding just a lot of different avenues of research, and it kind of ended up me talking to Dr. Couchman in addition to that because he was more of the cognition aspect of it. And at one point he was kind of showing me his equipment, just kind of showing me what the psychology department had to offer, and he introduced me to Albright's virtual reality machine and walked me through the simulation, allowed me to see a simulation that I ended up using, which was a fear simulation, a haunted elevator ride, along with other simulations such as colored blindness simulation, and also just like kind of more fun like elevator roller coaster type stuff.
Okay. We'll go into the details of the experiment that you performed, but it's interesting to see that sort of natural transition from classroom curiosity to further discussions with both your advisor and then another faculty member, and then moving that onto an ACRE application, right? Mm-hmm. We should point out that these are very competitive grants. It's a grant that gives you a stipend for the summer, and as well as housing and that sort of thing. So it's sort of a plum prize.
Yeah, it's definitely, it ends up being a full-time job.
Right.
And all aspects of the application, doing the application, kind of that stress waiting to see if you're going to get accepted, and then you're here all summer. But it's definitely a rewarding experience.
And that's the way that academic life happens, right? That you apply for grants, you get some funding, and because of the worthiness of your project, and then you get to do the work.
It's almost a nice transition to like me being a senior this year, kind of that kind of insight into what it's going to be like when I have to go apply a real world job, that like application process, that waiting time, and kind of hopefully the good turnaround at the end. Right. I get a rewarding experience from it.
We could ask this at the end, or I'll ask you now. After you've graduated from Albright, are you thinking about going into some sort of institution to work, or are you thinking about grad programs? Or
I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I mean, Dr. Couchman are kind of working now on constructing another experiment just so I can sort of narrow down my interests. Because where the point I am right now is I'm really interested in doing research kind of full time, and he had recommended going and getting a PhD and going to a full-time doctorate program, but I need to figure out exactly what kind of field of psychology I would want to do. So a couple of the studies I'm thinking about doing now kind of incorporate some of the stuff we did in the Acre and then kind of some new stuff to kind of solidify what a specific avenue.
Great, yeah, just sort of bring some focus to your interests.
Yeah.
Yeah, the PhD sounds right to me. I think when you're sitting in the classroom and you've got questions swirling in your mind, that means that you've got that bug for further research and advanced degrees.
Yeah, I was telling this a couple of the professors, and like, well, why can't I just like sit and do like research the rest of my life? And they're like, you can. You just have to go to a PhD program.
Exactly. Well, I know that now you're not a psychology major and you're not a bio major. You're a combination of the two, right? And Albright has had this interdisciplinary psychobiology major for really a very long time. It was one of the first four-year colleges to have that combined major.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting perspective because I think too many times, even within psychology, like they teach you about the whole nature and nurture debate and how it's kind of an interaction between the two. But I think psychobiology kind of gives you the opportunity to get a little more into that because you do have the biology heavy, so you're learning about kind of all the fundamental like chemical processes and the human anatomy and stuff that play in to all the psychology type stuff. So I think it's that extra emphasis that kind of gives it the right sort of balance.
Yeah, so you really have a strong, detailed sense of the nature end of things, and then you can weigh everything else against that.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of easier to kind of, I guess, get the nurture perspective just because that's the way you're brought up. Like, you can look back on your life and be like, oh yeah, that happened to that and that. But without the actual, like, biology background and sitting in the classroom and learning about that, that kind of just kind of gets shunted off a little bit.
Then it becomes just a story, perhaps.
You're like, yeah, there's something about nature and genetics.
Yeah. Now, did you come to Albright as a psychobiology major, or did you sort of find that at some point?
I actually, when I entered Albright, I was actually thinking about going in the route of occupational therapy.
Okay.
So psychobiology fit really well just because I was taking the anatomy classes, I was taking the psychology I needed. Not really on that route anymore, but at the same time, it just ended up being really good. Everything kind of fell into place, and it kind of got me where I needed to be, and really enjoyed the biology classes I ended up having to take.
Great. So all positive feedback is leading you into a slightly new dimension then. Great. Well, let's talk about the particulars of the experiment. Which of those many questions in your mind prompted this project?
I guess it was just kind of how to alter stress response, because I know
stress response. I've had those.
Yeah. I guess it's just kind of like sitting in the classroom all the time and like watching other students and myself, and we're sitting there taking exams all the time, and the first thing to do is like, you stress out. You have an interview, you're stressed out. And it ends up being such a vital part of your life that I'm like, there has to be some way to figure out how to alter it. And it also played in the biology aspect of it, because I was taking biology classes, I was taking an anatomy class, and kind of learning about the negative effects, even if you're not consciously deciding you're stressed out about something. If it's just your body reacting to a stressful situation, you're going to have negative health aspects from it.
Right. Now, as we know, stress reactions are really normal, right? We wouldn't be here today if our ancestors hadn't been stressed out by leopards chasing them down in the African savannah. So we need those, but I guess they can be modified. We could probably just go over to CVS here on the corner and find something to alter our stress levels, right?
Yeah, the only problem if you go the CVS route and start just medication, you always have the interaction effects with the medication with the biology, versus if you can kind of cognitively control it more, then you kind of take away just all that extra biology stuff that you don't really know where it's going to lead.
Okay.
And then you also have to worry about over-medication and that kind of stuff, which ends up happening.
So you were looking for non-chemical means of managing stress. Great.
Yeah.
What exactly did you do, and who did you study? And
we were studying mostly just the college students here at Albright, so we had volunteers. The psychology department always gets invited. A lot of the professors offer extra credit to the students who do participate in studies. Since I was using a virtual reality simulator, I kind of got a couple extra students who were just interested purely. They were like, oh yeah, I'll try it out. So I got them. Basically what I did was I brought them into the room, and of course they had to sign a consent form. Said they were going to participate in the study. And then I was using a technique that Dr. Heron, who is actually the clinical psychologist who teaches a lot of the health psych related courses here, she had recommended. It's a very simple process where people sit down and just write and reflect on experience. And to increase
one of their own experiences.
Yes, so something that happened in their life. We used, if it was supposed to increase their self-esteem, I just told them simply, take an experience in your life that you tried something and you're successful, something that you're proud of. A couple people, they were like, well, like, what kind of things? And I was like, it could be as simple as, like, anything that would make you want to go home and, like, tell your grandma about it. I was like, even if it was the dumbest thing and other people wouldn't give it merit, like, if it made you happy and it made you proud, it counts.
The grandma test.
Yep.
I like that. I like that. And then you also, for another group, you asked them to think about something that lowered their self-esteem?
Yeah, so the alternative group to that, we were trying to see, just kind of to bridge the gap, we had them just reflect on the experience in which it's something they were not successful in, something that they tried and didn't accomplish the way they wanted to. There's a couple people who talked about like job interviews or just like papers that they weren't successful in. And so none of it necessarily had to be like
deep trauma, the loss of a relative or something like that.
No, but it was just like the smallest, simplest things that like you try something and you're putting your all into it and like you just don't have anything to come back for it.
Not running home to your grandmother to tell her about your blue ribbon in the show and finding out that she was dead. Nothing like that.
No.
Okay, good.
More of like you told your grandma you were gonna apply for this job and then you don't get the job, so then you just kind of low-key don't bring it up later type conversations.
Yeah. Okay. And then following that period of reflection, and did people write down their reflections or did they just think about them?
I had them write it and also read it out loud, just because if you do any sort of clinical work, a lot of the time just the process of writing it and having to read it kind of further solidifies it, because you can tell people to think about things, but that doesn't mean they're going to think about like
our minds go all sorts of places. Yeah.
So just kind of make sure they're like focused on what they were doing and really was reflecting on the experience.
Good. And then after that, then came the virtual reality?
Yep. After that, I had them put on what we called the Oculus Rift. It was just a headset. I left them there in a couple minutes and just kind of was taking baseline vitals, because I know when I ran it, it was like that weird phenomenon where you're in this weird virtual reality world and you know it's supposed to be 2D, but at the same time it's 3D. So we took baselines and...
And how do you do that? How do you take those baseline vitals?
So we had two machines actually hooked up to the computers. One was a blood oxygenation.
Pulse ox?
Yep. Just clipped right onto your thumb. So we were taking blood oxygen levels there, which are typically around 100, but they will go down when you're stressed because you're using up blood.
Yeah.
And then it also measured your heart rate through the same mechanism. We also had two electrodes that we had placed on the participants' fingers, so they were measuring basically sweat. More fancy term is galvanic skin response, but basically it ends up being the combination of water and sodium, which is both in your perspiration, both of which conduct electricity, which is why when you're in the ocean and it starts thundering, people yell at you to get out, because it's not so safe.
And it's why when you see cartoon characters in stressful situations, they're always exuding sweat all over their brow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. And then what did people see? Or what did people experience, I guess, in there?
So for 3 minutes, they were in a haunted elevator. So when they looked around the elevator, it actually changed their perception a little bit. And you moved up and down the elevator. You could see the floors change. Every once in a while, it would open up, and you'd get like a ball thrown at you, or you'd hear like crinkling, whispering. The lights flickered off at one point. At one point it goes dark and you hear a creepy, like, ominous voice to tell you to turn around. And the way the headset was set up, it could actually monitor whether or not you turned your head. So when participants turned around, kind of looked around for a bit, didn't see anything, would turn back around, and a slender man would pop out at them and jump in.
Did you find anybody taking off their headset?
We didn't have people take off their headset. I think it was more of a phenomenon that they were so engrossed in it.
It was so
that
real.
they didn't actually think to take off their headset. We did have a couple participants who, they were unfortunately in like a rolling chair, so when they went and kicked back, they went to jump back and actually move the chair back with them.
And pulled out their plugs? Or?
Yep.
Oh,
unfortunately, those were a couple of incidents where like we've had to like kind of cut them from the participant pool because we couldn't actually keep their monitor.
Even though their response was really strong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually had a couple of participants also comment to me after the situation. Teal, where I was conducting the research, has an elevator, and a couple of the participants did not want to use the elevator after the research study.
Right.
They're like, I'm going to take the chair.
Yeah, fortunately there are not that many elevators at Albright, and it's good exercise to go up and down the steps.
That's what I figured. It like kind of was a twofold thing. Like I got experimental
wellness
data.
campaign.
Yeah.
Okay.
Promoted healthy walking habits. It's fine.
Now, did the experimental subjects, did they realize the relationship between the memory exercise and then the virtual reality experience?
Not till afterwards. So afterwards, I did disclose to them that there was two separate things based on the conditions. I told them you were in this condition, there was this condition, and told them a little bit about the hypothesis, which was basically if you were in the self-esteem increasing condition, we were expecting their stress responses to be lower than the reverse.
Okay. So you had your expectations, you had your hypothesis that you were going to test, and it sounds like you had lots of numbers and data that you were going to be able to compare. What did you find?
Well, I guess unfortunately, but fortunately, in a way, our hypothesis wasn't exactly supported in all the cases. It turns out that the measures that we were taking, we also took personality inventories for grit, which is kind of just your perseverance. So like your ability to keep kind of on the same trajectory over and over again.
No matter what is distracting you or stressing you.
And then also resilience. So if you think kind of like Disney Nemo, just keep swimming type things. So like even if you're put up against adversity, you're just kind of going to keep going, keep trying.
Bounce back.
And we kind of learned that there was kind of an interaction between the three, and it kind of really depended on where the participants fell and their unique personality on how they reacted to the priming of reflection. It was almost as if sometimes if participants' mindset was already to do something, that making them reflect in a certain way kind of interacted with that in such that it kind of almost messed it up because they were already so set with like, oh yeah, this is the way I automatically think, that like forcing them to think that way was kind of like, what? Like,
almost beside the point. Huh.
And actually kind of, at least based on the research, made them a little bit more stressed out.
If you were going to redesign the experiment, how would you modify it, do you think?
I think I would definitely have to make sure I took the personality inventories ahead of time, and then based on that, seeing if I could assign them a condition based on what I could find in the inventory to kind of see if it's like, okay, this person's high grit and high resilience, so I'm going to put them in this condition to kind of solidify more if there is that interaction and kind of how best to accommodate the different kind of personalities.
Okay. So in the way you found that the personality inventory was more predictive than the kind of reflection they had done. Wow.
Yeah, it's almost kind of alarming in a sense too, kind of figuring out that that was so significant, because a lot of times, especially like in everyday situations, people try to give you like, oh yeah, like I did this and it reduced my stress, you should try it out. And I mean, like, they don't have any bad intentions, they want to help you out, it worked for them and they're recommending it.
Yeah.
But the truth of the reality is you can't take stuff like that at face value all the time, because you really have to make sure you understand person or tailoring techniques to what they specifically need as an individual versus just kind of trying to find this like global pill.
Yeah. Human beings are complex and we're distinctive and individual in a lot of ways. Okay, well that's not a terrible lesson to learn. Are you going to continue on with this same problem in questions, or other questions and terms of relationship between cognitive psychology and...
I've sort of wrapped up the elevator simulation, but I am still really interested in the cognitive aspect. I'm actually taking cognition officially as a course here this semester, and so bridging from there, I'm looking into kind of studies related to metacognition, so kind of forcing people to think about their thinking and why they make the decisions they make, and also possibly some more virtual reality stuff, trying to work in like putting people in embodiment situations related to biasing and that kind of avenues.
Now, you mentioned both Dr. Feigelson and Couchman, but also Dr. Herndon.
Yeah, Dr. Heron.
Heron, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, she advised me regarding the technique that I use with the writing reflection, because she, with her clinical background, she wasn't directly related, but she had enough input that I was able to kind of glean a couple techniques from her.
Yeah. So in some ways you were triply mentored in this project. And that's probably fairly typical at Albright, right? That in some ways it's not just one teacher who leads you deeper into your research, but other people are fascinated by your own curiosity and want to encourage you.
Yeah, I think psychology is a good avenue for that, just because there's so many different things that kind of interlap and that you get a bunch of different diverse perspectives, especially if you want to do research, because it's kind of nice to be able to kind of synthesize a lot of different fields, because a lot of times when they're kind of studied in isolation, you kind of leave out a lot of stuff.
That's right.
And so you don't necessarily get as much of a holistic view of it. Like, I don't know if it would have helped if I had talked to like the social psych professor before I did inventories, because like maybe she would have been like, oh yeah, like we found this stuff. So
okay. I know over the course of summer, you were among the few students doing a psychology project, right?
I think I was the only one.
I think you were the only one.
This summer, unfortunately.
But we had biologists and we had chemists and people working on literature and broad social attitudes and that sort of thing. And of course, every week, all the students and all the mentors came together and heard specific presentations by the different students. Did you have some favorite presentations that you heard or saw?
I was a big fan of the theater production that went on, just because it was based very much psychology oriented.
It was.
Since they were doing kind of a play that didn't necessarily have set in stone characters, so everything was kind of more up to interpretation for them. And they were
looked like two characters, but in fact they were multiple characters in slightly different situations.
And kind of they were playing with the idea of, it was kind of everything was happening in different dimensions, but it was almost the thought that like small decisions that you can make can kind of alter the way your life plans out,
right.
Which I really did enjoy as a psychology major.
Yeah. Did you actually get to see the live performance then of the play?
Yeah, I did go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually excited they did mention that they might be on the outskirts of possibly doing the production again at the larger scale, so I'm excited for that.
I hope they do. It was really beautifully done. Beautifully done. Good. But I attended a lot of these summer luncheon sessions, and I find it fascinating to just see how deeply and how seriously students take work in all these different fields. And you can see an interesting future in so many ways. And a lot of these projects I think probably are good for society. Right?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think, especially when you're growing up in like regular grade school, like education gets a bad rap because it's boring, or like I don't want to do it, like I sit there in class, but like at the heart of it, like if you can find something you're interested in and something that you have a passion for, it's not boring at all.
It's not. No, it's the most delightful thing in the world.
You just have to find your right niche.
Yep. I know that you gave a presentation tonight along with 4 or 5 other Acre students, but they're continuing this week, right?
Yeah, both on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, there'll be more presentations.
I think at 6 o'clock.
Yep, they start at 6.
And that's going to be in room 256, Science Hall, the large auditorium in the Science Building.
256.
So folks at home could stop by the campus and see some other really bright students talk about their passionate research.
And they even had some snacks.
And snacks!
Yeah, there was brownies and little cheesecake things. And
there we go. It's a win-win. Well, great. Renee, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show and sharing your really, really interesting work. And best of luck to you as you continue your research.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Good, thanks. We'll see you perhaps Tuesday, perhaps Wednesday at an Acre presentation. I think the exhibit Faces of Reading is going to be taken down before my next show, so you might want to stop by the Friedman Gallery at Albright College as well and see that. We're grateful for your interest in the college, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in another month on another edition of the Albright Scholar. Good night.
If you listen to the critics, if you listen to your own doubts and call them reasons, you may never find the drive to go back to school. But a little change in direction, a new perspective, and the right program may make your successful new path a reality. The Accelerated Degree Program at Albright College. Start your degree or complete your degree one night a week in as little as 2 years. Albright College, a different way of thinking.